Well, welcome back to the workshop for what is going to be the last in this series of videos about the Difiler. As I said in one of the previous videos, it's an ongoing project and subject to change throughout. Some minor, some a little more major. I'll contrast and compare the motors in a minute. I think I said that I needed a power unit. Well, I connected up the motor that I had originally installed to a 20 volt battery from a battery powered hedge trimmer actually, and by golly did it frighten me. The motor is several thousand RPM, and because of the inertia imparted to the RAM and what have you, the whole damn thing jumped up and down about a foot in the air and came crashing down, so that experiment stopped, and back to the drawing board. I'll go over to the workbench and show you what's turned up in the post to hopefully get over that problem. Well, as you can see, I've got a rather tastefully draped towel to cut out some of the rubbish in the background, as it's making it difficult to see what the wood from the trees. But this is the motor I had originally installed. I think its minimum running speed is 3,500 RPM, and despite the reduction of about 4.5 to 1 to the ball wheel, as I just explained, made the whole thing jump around terrifically. And so I ordered one with a reduction gearbox, giving an output of 120 RPM. Now I think this is probably going to be too slow, but I'll see how it works in the event that I can get it going at the end. And this is what turned up in the post. As you can see, something of a difference in size. However, not to worry, the reduction should mean it's got plenty of torque. I'm just hoping that that's the case. What I had to do, of course, was make a new mount, and if I get the light shining on there, because these bosses stick out considerably, well, no, not considerably, 2.5 mil actually, but such a funny pattern. I've had to carve it out. I did it manually rather than do it on the 3D router, and that fits in there quite neatly. I luckily had an offcut of black perspex left, which supplied the raw material. That's secured in there. This fits on the base along here in the same position as the old one, and is secured by 2 screws, just like the old mounting. And I've got to adjust the height of it with the spacer, which I decided to keep, because that's a good way of stabilising the mounting I've found. So there we are, it's all stripped down, and I'm about to start building it back up again, stage by stage. Oh, just one other thing while I think of it. The RAM slide was originally going to have a carrier in it for the file, but I decided, because the hole is so small and the file is relatively large, I'm just going to put the file straight in. This is a conventional file which cuts in that direction and clears in that direction, so for the Difiler it's the wrong way round, but it's all I've got at the moment, so that's going to have to do. I'll have to try and source some proper die files at a later date, but it will at least demonstrate the action of the die filer when it's running. I've got a little bit of adjustment to do on the gibs on here. These are still a bit loose, so with a bit of, it's had a little bit of running but not much, so the gib needs adjusting. Anyway, we'll come back when I've done a few other little odd jobs and put it all together. One thing I should add that I meant to mention in that last bit of video is I've also bought an adjustable power supply. Haven't tried it yet, but it provides 9 to 24 volts DC with an on-off switch and variable output, and a neat little digital display which, well, with a bit of luck, will provide the voltage being supplied. Anyway, that's going to be applied later. I'm not sure whether I shall wire it directly to the motor or not. I probably will. This then is the start of the final assembly. Although I haven't adjusted the jibs on the ram slide, I'll do that a little later once I've got the motion going. The motor, gearbox, drive assembly is all mounted on the base. The ball wheel is actually floating at the moment, so I can get the correct clearances. And now I've got to put a spacer on there. Already got the spacer on there. Line those two up. Bring the link into play. Put the dowel pin through. I knew that would happen. And that's the wrong thinking. I'll tell you what, put it through the other way. This is fiddly. There we go. Just bend down and line that flat up. There we go. Tighten the grub screw. And no, I haven't forgotten to lubricate all the bearing surfaces. Well, I have, but I've done that purposely. So that's all lined up. I'll put that sleeve on that way around. Retaining nut, which is a nylock fitting, goes on there, and we'll give just a running clearance. That goes that way around, and that's up against the stop, so that needs to be locked up tight. I'm doing this left-handed so I don't get quite so much of my stubby fingers in the view. I've forgotten the spanners. This needs a little running clearance, of course. That's just nipped up tight and then back it off a quarter of a turn, and that now spins maybe just a smidgen tighter. And this one goes locked up tight. Right, that is now aligned, and that's the wrong blinking. Okay. Yeah. I'll have to check that it's on the flat, but for now that's good enough. I've got 2 screws here. Where do they go? That'll come to me in a minute. Anyway, I'm now going to screw the top plate on. Of course, everything's getting in the way now. Screw things together before I'll stop now and do that off camera and bring you back when it's complete. Well, I did have it all put together. However, when I did so, I hadn't noticed that the sliding bearing was very slightly too far up, despite me having put a stop in, obviously in the wrong place, and it had locked the mechanism solid. When I connected up the motor and gearbox to the power supply, nothing happened. I turned up the voltage on the power supply and then too late realised that I'd ordered a 24 volt maximum power supply, not a 12 volt. As a consequence, magic smoke issued from the motor, and that's now ruined. So I've had to send off not only a new motor and gearbox, but another power supply for 12 volts. However, now that I've found what the problem is, the motion does actually work as expected, and if I just turn it by hand, you'll see that the file, more of which I'll come to in a minute, does go up and down in a linear fashion as you would expect. I've adjusted the gibs, lubricated the ram and slide, and all the bearing points, of course. Back to the file. Originally I had the triangular needle file in there, which obviously cuts on the wrong stroke really for a die filer, and I suddenly remembered I'd got an old file for sharpening the teeth on a chainsaw. I don't have the chainsaw anymore, so I've repurposed this file. It seems to cut more or less both ways, but for the moment it's in that way round. The non-handle end is just about 5mm diameter, which fits the top of the RAM more or less precisely, and it's held in fairly securely. It remains to be seen whether it'll do the job or not. However, that's as far as we've got at the moment, and I'm now waiting for a new motor to arrive. Predicted delivery date is, let's see, what's today? Sunday, Wednesday, but I suspect that it'll come before that, because they always put a very pessimistic delivery date on, so that you can say that it arrived on time. So when it arrives, and the power supply, well, at least when the motor and gearbox arrive, I can connect it up. I have an alternative fixed output power supply which I can connect up temporarily, but I'm hoping that the power supply will also arrive at the same time, and you'll be able to see it running as it should. So that's it for the moment. Just got to wait for the delivery guys to do their job. Back later. Well, I'm pleased to say that both the new motor and gearbox have arrived, as has the power supply. I also took the opportunity to get some tiny little spade connectors sent, and a power socket. So it's been nearly a week now since that last clip, but it's all ready to go. I've wired up the motor, at least temporarily. I've yet to make a mount for the power socket, but that'll come later. Point is, it's working, and I'll take you over to the bench now, plug it in, and you'll see how we're getting on. Just a bit of a preamble before I actually switch on. You recall perhaps that the existing pulley and belt ratio was pretty low. Wasn't expecting it to go at a massive rate. However, I have got an alternative pulley, and it just so happens that if I replace the spacer on the bottom here with a 10mm one instead of a 5mm one, it just raises it enough so that this can be installed. A little higher would be better. I might even try 15, but this is I think an 18 or 20 tooth pulley instead of a 16, and that will give a slightly lower ratio, and will drive the ball wheel a little faster. But for the moment, I'm quite happy with the way it runs. So here we go. I'll switch on and turn the. Perhaps if we switch on a plug as well. That's 8 volts. Turn it up to, well, it's a smidge over 12. But there we are. See if I can zoom you in a bit. There's the motion working. And as you can see, the file goes up and down. I suppose I really ought to get a bit of metal and try and use it. Let's see. Let's not test it too much. I'll find a bit of aluminium on it. Well, yeah, all that feels like it's a bit of sharp aluminium. Yeah, that's unused. Just talk amongst yourselves while I sort myself out. I had a raggedy old bit of aluminium silvers. There we go. Let's come down the other side. You probably can't see it, but it is actually cutting. This is 5mm strip, sheet rather, which it wasn't really intended to cut. At the moment it's cutting on the upstroke, don't know why, so I'll have to try and get some proper files, but as you can see, in principle it works. I've now just got to tidy up the wiring. Let's turn that off. And fit the power socket properly to the base, and that completes the project. So there we are. There's not much point me showing you any more of the cleaned up wiring. That well, pretty straightforward, but that completes the project. Hope you enjoyed it, and if you have been, thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.